Hello, I hope people can hear me. We have a few people there. Julie, Sean, Julie, thank you very much. That's always good to know, isn't it? That we can be heard. So let me see here. We're going to be starting in, I think, about 30 seconds time. So we'll just get started, as soon as just allow just a few more seconds. I hope everyone's been having a good time and has found lots of things which are useful. Oh, the previous session is overrunning. Oh, well, okay. Well, perhaps just 1 minute more because I know people have got here. Um, I do like to start on time. Mm. All right. That's very helpful, Julie. Thank you very much for letting me know about that. Mm. Hiker Edwards. Is that you, Hiker Edwards? Let me see. Hiker? Perhaps I know. Perhaps I know. I'm not sure if it's the same hiker that I know from university in Leeds, but perhaps it's not. But hello anyway. Okay, right. I think we should get started. Let me just start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, can I just have a thumbs up to know that everything's going okay there? Thumbs up from somebody. Great. That's excellent. Right. There's so many thumbs going off the page. That's lovely. Right. Now, I I've been presenting at the Lancashire Show for quite a while now. And the last time I presented was live, and I did this presentation, and it was I really enjoyed it because I was able to demonstrate some of the techniques with the people who were there face to face. So obviously, this is not going to happen this time. So I'm going to try and explain exactly how all of these techniques work. But there is a handout which I've attached to the last slide. So there are detailed instructions on all the techniques that I'm going to talk about, which I think can be helpful for you. But again, if there is anything that you're not quite sure of, perhaps at the end, then you can put a question in the chat, and I'll try and monitor that. It's difficult to keep monitoring everything all at once. Oh, hi, it is you from Leeds. Okay, I've just checked the chat. Okay. Hello from Portugal. Lovely. Okay. Right, well, let's get started. Now, these techniques are things that, I didn't come up with them, or perhaps I just adapted ones that I heard about, that I've seen other people use. So there's nothing amazing about these techniques. I think it's just little tweakings of things which can make the techniques work a bit better, perhaps in class. And as the blurb said about my session is that it's designed to be as simple as possible, and it's just your imagination, really, your creativity, which is, well, teachers are very, very creative anyway, but you don't need to have extra skills of technology to be able to use these techniques. I mean, yesterday I sat in a few sessions, and brilliant technology and all these things that teachers can use now to develop, AI and all of these things. And it was brilliant, but I felt a bit overwhelmed at times because there's so much out there, and it's like, well, what do I use? Where do I go? And it can be a bit overwhelming, I think. So I find that it's always good to have. It's not a bad thing to go back to basics sometimes and have something up your sleeve which you can just bring out and use without too much preparation. Okay, so as I said before, let me just get my I've got all details, all these techniques in a PDF handout, so you don't need to do anything, make notes or anything like that, even if if you weren't thinking of doing that. It's all in the handout at the end. And there's my email there. So if there's anything you don't understand in any of the to do with the activities, then just email me, okay? And we can chat about something or whatever. Even if it'd be great to get some feedback from you as well. So I've deliberately kept the screens very simple because it's kind of to represent what it would be like on a board. Yeah, so you've got number one here, personal cloud. And I do hope the presentation is moving on. If it suddenly gets stopped and you're not seeing what I am talking about, then you've got to let me know. So personal cloud, I use this all the time. I used to use it with my students when I worked in Brazil. I used to use it with secondary school, perhaps not primary, but you can do. I use it with all my undergrad students that I teach now, with my MA TESOL students. And usually this is kind of an initial lesson. It's like an icebreaker. The aim is to get students to know you, the teacher, but also then you get them to know each other. And it's just so simple. And you've probably done this all before. Having a little cloud is a nice thing, but you just put in five words, 5 items, numbers that are to do with you. And you then preferably, and you will notice this, but in all of these activities, I like to do activities in teams, in little groups, because that gives it a bit more, students are more motivated to, everyone likes a bit of competition. And this is what I found with adults as well. If they can get 2 points for correct answer, then that motivates them to want to try harder, basically. Anyway, so I would arrange perhaps, if I've got 20 students in a class, into groups of 5 or 4, and then I would give each team, or they would suggest a name for each of their teams, and then they would have to start asking me questions. Now, it could be a yes/no question, like, is your mother called Meggie? And if I say no, then we move on to the next question, and they don't get a point for that. Or it could be like, what's the name of your mother? And if I respond Meggie, then they would get 2 points. In this case, it's not. She's my daughter. So anyone who said, "Oh, what's your daughter's name?" and I said it's Meggie, they would get 2 points. And then I'll just cross that off the board and move on to the next one. So this is done quite quickly. Keep the momentum up, and then once those have been guessed, then because it's been demonstrated by myself and the class, then it's easy, right? Okay, you do it. Okay, think of three items, perhaps. It depends on how much time you have. 3 things about yourself, and then they do it in small groups, and then they can report back. What I like them to get them to do is to report back about someone in their group. So they really have to listen to what they're finding out about the new people that they didn't know before, because normally this is kind of like an icebreaker kind of thing. So it gets them to listen, it gets them to report back about someone in their group. And I think it makes you feel, each student feels valued in a way, because the whole class is learning something about them, something important, something could be personal, funny, and it really kind of sticks in your mind. So I remember things from my MA TESOL students that they said in the first class, something interesting, that will stay with me. So I think personal cloud is a really good activity to use, and it's nothing new. It's just, a way of getting to know students. And well, one of the purposes here also is to get students to ask questions. So you could adapt this by having, if you wanted to practice, like, have you ever been to questions or that kind of thing, you could perhaps adapt this and just have items on the screen, of places or things that you've done, and they have to try and get the yes or no questions, and if they get it right, they get 2 points. If they don't, then they get just 1 point perhaps, or no points. Anyway, I've got to watch the time here. I haven't actually got my clock on here. Right. Okay. Um, Now, number 2, alphabet challenge. Simple as anything. Just, again, it can be a first class time you're meeting a class the first time. It could be just as a starter. All of these things can be used kind of as starters as well, I think, in secondary, as well as other types of situations. So if they're just students just on a piece of paper write down the alphabet, and perhaps I've got 4 groups in the class and they're intermediate. So I'll say, okay, write down something you might find at the beach when you go to the seaside for each of these letters. I give them a time limit, a strict time limit, like 2 or 3 minutes. They have to do that in groups very quickly. And then bell, time over. Then I would go through the marking. So if, for example, for let me think here. For if it's something at the seaside and someone put arcade, one group got arcade, But if another group also got arcade, yes, they'll get a point for that. But if another group said something completely different that no one else had said, and it was a unique word, they would get 2 points for that. Now, what this does is it makes them want to listen to the other groups. So if they've said like B for banana split, and they want to listen to see if the other groups have said that word as well, to see if they're going to get the 2 points or just 1 point because other group has said the same thing. So that just a simple kind of technique of the scoring system can make them want to listen better. So I thought it's just a little kind of a touch there, which I think can help. And anyway, so this could be for any category, and you could make this up on the spot. It could be for beginners, any word in English, and they often find that's quite motivating because they do end up knowing quite a lot. Word minimum number of letters, semantic fields. I mean, you could go to town, sports, food, drink, ways of talking, ways of walking. It just maybe related to things that your students have already seen. You could even say, right, one word that we used last class. I don't know. So it's just you coming up with what your students actually need, what would benefit them. Simple, straightforward, pen and paper, that's all you need. Moving on, define 5. Again, main purpose of this is to give students practice in defining, in explaining what a word is. So simply, teacher could call out a category, jobs. And each individual could then write down 5 jobs, okay, without showing their neighbour. And then in pairs, they have to define that job. Oh, someone who cleans the street, whatever. And their pair has to find the correct word, of course. So it can be done in pairs to maximize a student talking time. It could be done in pairs. I mean, 3s. It could be done in 4s. It could also be done in teams, whereby a team of 4 perhaps would write down 5 jobs, for example, objects in the bathroom. Another team would do the same. Then they swap lists, and only one person in one of the teams can see the list, and they have to define these for their team. And they're up against each other. So it's the first team that gets all the words. They will get a certain number of points. Obviously, the teacher needs to monitor this to make sure that students are not kind of whispering or trying to cheat in any way. Not that they would. And also, one thing you could do is obviously gestures. We use gestures to explain what we mean, don't we? To explain and define words would be easy. But what you could do is you could stipulate that they have to put their hands behind their backs and they can't use gestures, just use words. So that is an alternative you could do to make it a bit more challenging, and students will probably find that quite funny. So define 5, that's that one. You could decrease the number if you want to have 3. Define 10, that's probably a bit too much. But as you know, just adapt that according to what you've been working with the students with there. Right, number 4, mine is best. Again, you could do this in pairs, in threes, in teams. I think in threes is kind of a nice minimum. But okay, write down one job. So everyone writes down one job, or famous actor. Okay, famous actor, their favorite actor. Right, now decide which one is best. And they have to just come up with, not argue, well, they could argue about it, but they could use comparatives. Tom Cruise is much better actor than Antonio Banderas, or he's not. But anyway, because blah, 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 blah. No, I don't agree with you there. No, that's, and you could, if you've been teaching opinion expressions, you could have a list of those on the board, and they have to use them each time they say something. So you could sort of stipulate the language that you want them to incorporate into their conversations. Perhaps you could even, after the groups have done it, you could then have one of the team who's perhaps a bit more confident, one of the groups, to give their reasons, for which actor is best. And then the whole class can listen to the arguments, and then decide which one they think is best argued, as it were. Right, hang on. I think I've got a question here. I'm probably having lots of questions now. I'm not. Where is my chat? Sorry, this is when I start. Yeah, I had a hand up. I don't know if it's a question. Okay. Oh, well, I can't see anything there at the moment. At the end, perhaps we can deal with any questions if that's okay. Now, what's the word? Oh, right. This is I remember doing this. I mean, I haven't done this recently, but when I was teaching students in Brazil, this really, really worked well. So basically, a short dialogue or a little text, anything that you really want them to focus on the nitty-gritty of the words or the grammar, what you can do is you can just prepare it in a grid system. So each of these boxes represents a word. Now, in this case, it's a dialogue about 2 people, and you can give students as many clues as you want. 2 people, and one of them is asking the other one out, basically. And then you can get them into teams, and you would then say, okay, right, team A, tell me a word you think is going to be in this type of dialogue. And at first it can be a bit difficult, but as they start suggesting words, then you fill them in. So, for example, you appears in this dialogue, do you? So then as these words start being filled in, then it gets easier and easier, and they start predicting what words they should be in according to the grammar they know, the structures. So it's really, really detailed focus on the structures and grammar and certain vocabulary, and it gets them to focus. And I think that really, really helps in their helping them learn it. And it's a bit of fun as well. So all of these activities to try and get them to feel more, their affect. I want to raise the affect to help them feel more motivated and perhaps remember the language that they're using. So I've got here in the next slide the actual dialogue itself. So this is what the teacher would have, and it's in columns and numbers there for the teacher to be able to easily fill in as they go along. So if a student says, I know exactly, I've got a sheet here and say, it's 3A, and I can put it up there quickly, etc., etc. And in here, you can see that perhaps this dialogue is a bit more authentic than something we might find in a course book, where all the sentences might be grammatically, how do I say, correct and say there's all the auxiliaries there, etc. But here, long time no see, this is what we say, been ages, not it has been ages. So this kind of can highlight to students as well the fact that often we miss out, we don't speak in grammatically correct sentences all the time. So I think that is something that can be a revelation sometimes to students. And this is can highlight that. So anyway, this will work for any dialogue, preferably a short one. Obviously, you've got to monitor and see how students get on with this. If they are engaged, how long it takes. It's all about, you've got to keep the momentum up. But I've found this has worked very, very well. And you could use it for a short, like if you want them to produce a short, I don't know, personal summary about themselves or a little story or something, you could use this technique, I think, to get them to think about particular structures, maybe. Okay, where are I? 205. Okay, what's the word? What's the word? Football English. Oh, I wish we were all together to be able to do this. I've put it in green, but obviously if you're drawing this on the board, it wouldn't be in green, but I thought for your benefit, it'd be nice to actually see the green there. So you just draw this on the board, and this can be used for any language that you want to recycle. It could be vocabulary, it could be a structure. For example, this one I have used for, let me just find my bits and pieces here. For example, tag questions. Yeah, I was practicing tag questions with my students, and I would divide the class into 2 teams. And I have a ball. So only when the team has got the ball can they speak. Okay. I also would have a little cardboard ball with a piece of blue tack. This is low tech. Okay. Piece of blue tack, which I would stick in the middle of the screen there. So I would flip a coin, see which team would start. Okay, and they can give themselves, they like to give themselves a name, perhaps a name of a team or whatever. And the team that wins the coin, obviously wins the flip, will begin. So I would then start with my first one. For example, okay, students, just what is the tag question here? And I would say, oh, you don't like Michael Gove. If they consult with each other, if they get it right, the ball moves further towards their opponent's goal. So here, to the first line. They're still in possession of the ball because they got it right. I would then ask them a second one, like, your mum's never been abroad. If they don't get that one right, then the ball goes into the possession of the other team, and it's their chance to answer the question. So if the next team, the opposing team, get the next one right, it goes back to the centre. They've got to get 1, 2, 3 more right to get a goal. You've got to have quite a few, I would suggest at least 20 or so questions or 20 or so items. I mean, it could be defining, it could be name a sport which has 11 players each side or whatever. So it's up to you how questions that you wish to use. Now, to make this a bit more animated, I mean, you could get a referee from one of the students could be a referee perhaps, and they actually move the ball, and they could be in charge of, if you wish, monitoring whether the teams are using their L1 or not. And if there is use of L1, I mean, it depends on the level of the students and what you allow, you could then show them a yellow card. You could have a student doing that if you want, and they could be monitoring, oh, I'm hearing some L1 here, there's a yellow card for this team. Now, if then a team gets after 2 yellow cards, they can be shown a red card, which means the opposing team then has a chance at a penalty. So the ball with the blue tack, the blue the ball with the blue tack on would be stuck here, one end, the relevant end. And then if they get one question right, it's a goal. So basically, instead of just giving them an exercise where they would fill in the tag questions in a boring fashion, you're just turning it into a more fun way of doing it. And when I used to use this quite a lot, and they would always, oh, we're going to play football English. So we did used to use it a lot. And again, it's that raising that level of affect, that motivation. It just means they engage, and they're engaging with each other, and they're talking to each other. So I think this is a really, really nice activity to use. You could turn it into basketball English. I mean, depending on, and apply the rules of that. So it's open for interpretation. It's just a device, Okay, after football English, what have we got going on now? Question Quest. Now, Question Quest is fantastic. The last time I used this was actually when I was teaching. When I was teaching my undergrads, demonstrating it. But in primary school use, I used to use this quite a lot as well, teaching my Year 2 Spanish. So Question Quest, and I actually remember seeing this being done at a very long time ago at the Languages Show. So I've used it since, and I think it's a good idea if people know about it. So really, it's a drill. The idea is to get students to repeat the question over and over and over again, but meaningfully. And what they need to do basically is, okay, let me just set the situation in the primary school when I used it there. So you've got 30 kids and you want them to practice, what's your favorite color? Oh no, how did you get to school? Okay, how did you get to school? And we've been doing transport. And we've practiced the question, and it's quite complicated, but they wanted to practice it. I needed them to practice it. So I would call out, choose 2 students, could be 4, to come up to the front. They have to face towards the board, while I then point to, or perhaps 2, or it could be 4, or it's up to you, it could be 3, 4 people, students, who we decide is the key transport. So by rocket, for example, something a bit wacky, by rocket. And what these 2 students who are facing the board have to do, and we explain this, and well, they know now how it works. They would have to, as soon as I say go, they would have to turn around and then go amongst all the students and ask them as quickly as possible until they find the 2 or 3 or 4 students who actually respond by rocket. And they have to stand up, and it's whoever gets the most number of people. Like if one student finds 3 of them that have said by rocket, they have 1 because the other one has only got managed to find 1 person, for example. I'm probably not explaining this wonderfully well. This is where I need to demonstrate this actually face to face. But the idea is that the student, has to ask it so many times, potentially to every person in the class, that they become fluent, that everyone is hearing the questions well. So, how'd you get to school? 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 And they're reducing it. They're using it more in a more fluent way. How'd you get to school? And they have to listen to the answer because they want to know if they're going to say by rocket or whatever. So this can work, for any questions. I remember the kids used to love this being done wearing police hats. So I've got 2 police hats, and it would be like their job to find the people who have the answer that we're looking for. So I know it's a bit kind of skew-whiffy way of looking at things, but just by having a hat on, it makes them feel important. They want to wear the hat, and they want to then do the questioning. Anything to get kids to to engage in that kind of activity. And of course, you can use this at other levels as well. But so the focus here is on getting students to ask questions, because we don't do enough of that, I don't think. I think it's often the teacher's the one that's doing all the questioning. So it's the more practice students can get in doing it, the better, I think. And you're practicing short answers as well, which can be like the answers to yes, no questions, the appropriate ones. And you can make it as wacky as you want as well. What did you eat last night? You know, the key could be octopus or something a bit weird. And they're likely to remember those. The weirder it is, they're likely to remember that word. So it's a way of learning vocabulary as well. So that's Question Quest for you. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Let me just see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, I mean, I've got with my year 2 Spanish ones that I did this with as well. Apart from the detective hats, I have Mexican hats as well, and they love wearing those as well. Don't know how it would work with teenagers. That's something I haven't done it with teenagers really, this Question Quest, but you could do it. You could scale it back. You know, find someone who I did this with my MAT Soul students as well recently, but instead of doing it like this, when they, you know, just 2 people, they would have to find the 3 people who've done the same thing as they had, for example. But I'd give them a time limit, and the first person to do it would then say, finished. And these are adults, you know, 25, 26-year-olds. So they really enjoyed that. So it's just a different take on the Question Quest. The idea is in both of those is to get students asking questions and making it meaningful. You know, they've got to listen. They want to hear the answer. It's not just asking a question they already know the answer to. So that's one of the key things about Question Quest, I think. Right, moving swiftly on, 3 in a row. What have we got here? Aim of this is to recycle vocabulary. So, for example, category is sport. All right, we've just been learning how to say the sports, whether in French, whether in Spanish, whether in English, whatever language you want. You can have 3, 4 teams, and it's a bit like noughts and crosses. But here, each of these numbers represents a sport that I have. So the teacher has this grid, but with sports in each one. So team A would start off, they can choose 6. And I would say they have to guess the sport based on some characteristics. But the first time that the team, okay, they say 6, and I say, all right, this is a sport, this is an outdoor sport. I give them 1 clue. They have a guess. And if they say rugby, and I say, sorry, on to the next team. Now, the next team can use the same number. So, number 6, please. And I give them a second characteristic. So I can say, right, it's an outdoor sport, it's a team sport. They have a guess. If they don't get it right, the next team can also ask for that one. I give them a third characteristic. Played with a stick. So you can do it like that. I mean, the students can choose the same one that has to increase the number of clues, or they can go for a completely different one. It's up to them how they do it. But the idea is to get 3 in a row. So, and when team C gets the right sport, for example, hockey, I would write the word hockey in number 6 in the colour that they have chosen. For if they're the blues or the reds or the yellows, then I could write that in a red pen, perhaps, so we can know who got that one. Or you can just write, you know, the letter C to know that is actually team C square. But putting the word up as well, because you want them to see the word and the spelling, etc. And this can be used obviously for any sets of vocabulary, any semantic field there that you wish to focus on. And obviously the sports, the clues, you can give more clues. It's up to you. There's all the ways, different ways of adapting it. Okay, I'm not doing too bad for time. Running dialogue. Okay, this is, I'm sure lots and lots of people have done this. Again, I wouldn't present this normally like this, but because we're not face to face, I can't do otherwise. I've got all of these things. I have this. This is a little story, and it's got to be quite small for this activity, running dialogue, but it depends on your students as well. So I have all this cut up into slips of paper, and what happens is that I have them either on a, if there are 3 groups, for example, I have 3 tables or 3 chairs, or you can put them on the floor or stick them on the wall with blue tack. It's up to you how you do it, whatever's available in your classroom. So just slips of paper, and they're all face down. I say go, right, and each one person from each group has to go to their set of slips of paper, turn one over. It could be the first one. You could mix them up. That's another level of difficulty. If you mix them up the order, then they have to reorder them. But anyway, they turn over one, and they have to, wherever the slips are placed, they have to read through it in their head, and they have to try and remember it, run back to their team and dictate it to their team, who then write it down. If that person, I've forgotten, they can go back and read it again, but they can't bring the slip back to their group, because their group have got to listen to what that team member is saying. So it's like a dictation, and they've got to be clear. They've got to get the word out clearly. They've got to remember every single word there. And they can keep going backwards and forwards if they want. Backwards and forwards as many times as they want. Once that sentence is done, someone else from the group then rushes up and reads the next one, rushes back. Okay, so you will know your students. You will know what level of English, of language, that you can push them to. You can make it as complex, as simple as it. It could be a dialogue, like the dialogue we've just had. It could be a dialogue. It doesn't have to be a text, a story, or anything like that. It could be just a simple dialogue. And then once they've got all the 7 or 8 sentences down, perhaps they have to reorder them. The first team to finish gets points, obviously, but then it's up to the teacher. Then has to, okay, let's go through this. Okay, what's the first line of the dialogue or the story? Have you spelt this? So you can, one way of doing this is by peer correcting. So you could then, they could swap their texts, their final text around. So their teammates, their opposing team, are correcting. They like doing that. You get a point for each correct word, etc. And also, you're dealing with corrections. They are identifying what the incorrect words are, or the spellings, or something that's missing, a preposition, or something like that. So again, running dialogue, it appeals to the kinesthetic needs that a lot of our students have. I think if you're able to, obviously it really depends on how many students you've got in the class, what the class setup is. Luckily, when I used to do this, the class was around the kind of the edge, so we had lots of space in which they could, without hurting themselves, run around and up. And it just, that level of excitement, that level of affect is raised. And working in those teams, I think it's much better than just giving them the text and then just having to reorder it. They're not processing it in any meaningful or a deeper way. So very simple and not much preparation at all, really. You've just got the text, the dialogue, and you just cut it up into slips. And have enough for each little group. I thought this was quite funny, this Nobel Prize. I haven't actually mentioned this text. I hope you understand what the punchline is there. Perhaps you've already read through it. But yeah, trying to win a Nobel Prize. Well, I heard they give the Nobel Prize to people who are outstanding in their field. It's meant to be outstanding, not outstanding in their field, obviously. So you could use a joke. You could produce something. You could make. It's all about you being creative and adapting this sort of technique to whatever suits your students and suits your purpose, really. Okay, right, last one. Let me see. Oh, okay time, I think. Pass the bomb. Again, dead simple. It's just increases that motivation, that element of competition, that I don't know. I like this kind of thing. So, for example, pass the bomb. You would put your students into groups of 3 or 4, ideally sort of 3 or 4. Then each group would have to have some kind of object. Now, it could be a rubber. It's anything, if you have plastic fruit, I mean, whatever you have, as long as there's something that can be passed around. I mean, this is lovely. This is a brain. It's a rubber brain. I got it from Tiger, I think it is. So these are, students love touching these, but it could be a ball, it could be anything, as long as they've got something they can pass around amongst their 3 or 4 people. So you, again, decide on a category. Okay, things found in the garden, and you say go, or you've got a little buzzer or something, a bell, and they have to then pass the object around. And once they've got the object, okay, things found in a garden, swings, pass it to the next person, grass, pass it, and you keep passing it around. They're doing it, they have to do it quite quickly, or they want to do it quickly, because you, as the teacher, there is a limit, a time limit. You can use your phone, you can time it, whatever. And after perhaps a minute or less, you will judge the amount of time that you need. Whoever is left holding the object when the timer goes off loses a point, or has a minus point, or I know that sounds negative, doesn't it? But it's all in good fun. And then they do it again, perhaps with another category, or the same category, and you do it as long until someone gets 3 crosses, or three negative, is caught with it 3 times. Then perhaps they could be out. It's up to you. If you've got to judge from your students if they're fed up with something or if they want to keep going. So it's just a fun way of recycling vocabulary, and it's up to the teacher to use the categories, really, to decide on the categories, and just to have some fun items which perhaps you can just get them to. It's nice and sensory, this brain, to pass around. Let me see here. Yeah. All right. Now, I think time-wise, that's because I've been talking all the time. I haven't taken any questions, but let me take some questions here. By the way, this is the, it should work. You should be able to click on that and it'll go to the PDF. I did test it yesterday, where all of the 10 activities, you've got all the kind of the steps, and the aims and an example of each one, just to, because it's difficult when you go back to a PowerPoint, it's difficult to, what was that about, etc., etc. Okay, well, thank you very much. Let me see, any questions. Now, let me see there, blah, 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 blah. Let me stop the video, stop the sharing, first of all. And yeah, any questions? Let me see here. And please, if you do have one, I can unmute you, because then you can actually ask me in right. Oh, you can't click on it? Oh, typical, isn't it? Well, anyway, I'll talk to Jonathan Scott, the organizer, and that's a bit weird, isn't it? That you can't click on it. Yeah. Well, you have what you can do. I'll talk to Jonathan because he'll probably be able to upload it to a proper place where people can upload it. All right. And or alternatively, you can email me and just say, "Oh, can I please have a copy of the handout?" And I can just send that to you. All right. But obviously, I will check that with Jonathan if there's what's the best way of doing it. I thought I'd done it. Share in the chat. Um, let me see here. The thing I can, let me see if I can try resources. Right, let's see if that will work. The thing is, I think Jonathan said that after once the recording is over, that the resources are not available. But let me see. I'll upload it now. See if I can. Add document. Right, let me find where that is. Let's see if you can get hold of it that way. Bear with. Right. Activate. It is active. Yeah, so it's activated there. So see if you can, if that worked. It'd be great if it does. So that's in the yeah, Annette, I've just put it in the resources one. So if you have a look there, it's worked great. It's in the resources. There's a resources button at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, so you should be able to download it from there. But as I say, if afterwards, if you aren't able to or whatever, I think there will be a way in which we can add that to it. Okay, yeah, you click on the resources below the screen. All right, well, thank you very much indeed. If you do have any questions, and if you any feedback at all, if you wish to email me or just keep in touch, that would be great. And thank you. I'll be stopping the webinar in a minute. I want people to go to their next sessions as well. Okay, and enjoy the rest of the language show, and hopefully see some of you somewhere. Perhaps when the language show goes face to face. I don't know if that will ever happen again. All right then. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, let me end there. And Heike, are you still there?
I'm still here. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, yes.
This is so funny.
I saw a name, I thought, yes, it must be. And then I thought, oh, perhaps it's not, perhaps I'm just, yeah.
And she is. All right? I'm very well, thank you. I've come around to my friend and neighbour's house and we've watched this together. We're both still teachers at a German school. We're still in the south of Spain. But
my goodness.
My son still lives in Hertford. So next time we go up to him, because you're just around the corner from there, aren't you?
From where, sorry?
From
Hang
Hertford.
on a minute. Yes, I am. Yes, Hertford. Yes, I remember. Yes.
Exactly. So next time we're up there,
okay,
we'll have to catch up. Even if
that'd
we
be brilliant.
Hit the local pub or something. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah. Hey, I'm just aware that this is still being recorded.
Okay.
So
let's be in touch via Instagram or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Or on Facebook if you're still on Facebook. I think you're still there, aren't you? Yeah. Good old Facebook.
We'll get together.
Okay then.
Thank
All
you
right
so
then.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.